So next up, we're going to check out the somewhat complete lore of Silksong by mossbag. We got around to finding out that maybe the Silent King was Silent King is 40k. The Hollow Knight setup was a little less horrible than I thought initially, other than the buzzsaw room. So we're just going to move on and see something that is hopefully not going to have a buzzsaw room. You know, I just realized that people have been comparing Hollow Knight to Silksong by saying Hollow Knight is a tutorial. I'm assuming there's not going to be one buzzsaw room. It's going to be an entire buzzsaw level, isn't it? Okay. That's going to be a thing. Let me be wrong. Let me believe I'm wrong. I know I'm not, but let me believe I'm wrong for a bit longer.
Regardless, it seems the Weaver's reign over the Citadel was not destined to last. We know at some point control of the Citadel was handed over to the Citadel bugs. Conductor Balador tells us this explicitly when he says, "The mantle of rule, claimed greedily from Pharloom's fading first children, those bitter weavers.
Oh, he's actually weaving.
It was yoke, not crown. In Balador's possession is a rune harp, an ancient weaver recording instrument containing..."
Oh, and this is what they were playing for the grandmother. Instrument with silk runes, fade runes. Pharloom's past. Oh.
The last words of the weavers, which reads, "Sisters, spiders, the burden is past. These simple bugs shall bear it in full. Never to cease, never to silence. We shall die and wait and pray that one may come of silken strength enough to weave us free."
Oh. If that was their last words then, so... I wonder if maybe there's more going on that I already know about. Okay, never mind. We're so far into the video. We definitely have more going on that I know about.
This record and Balador's comments tell us that running the Citadel...
Why would they be free
task,
also dead?
And at some point the Weavers decided to free
Or they're going to undie
Pharloom.
because of it.
In the lower lands of Pharloom, Hornet
Are
can
those
find
bones?
strange gates barring access to various weave nests. In these weave nests, it seems the Weavers schemed against Grandmother Silk.
Yeah?
In Weave Nest Atla in Moss Grotto, Hornet can find a lore tablet that reads, "This low her gaze escaped. Prepare, sisters, weave hope anew, that we might break free this accursed web born of our naive foundation." It seems at some point during their rule, it became clear to the Weavers that they could not keep Grandmother Silk trapped in slumber using
Oh, they know
song
it's ending.
forever. Instead, they would have to devise a new plan.
I know we've seen this before. Was it pulsing initially as well, or is that something that changes as the story alters? That would be a cool effect. Ooh. Also, I'm going to butcher your name about this one. Thagoda? Thagodu? Well, oh, enjoying the membership at the Gochi Moderate Evil level. Nice.
Deal with her. One such plan was Eva, also found
Eva?
in Weave Nest Atla.
Probably
Eva
another
is
spider.
a strange being confined to live her life within an iron shell. She is a child of the Weavers, but created from rune and shell instead of more traditional methods.
Oh?
There are two other aspects regarding the nature of Weavers I have yet to mention. First of all, it seems there are only female Weavers, considering they always refer to each other saying sisters. This is similar to how all Labubus are female.
You know, I should have seen this coming. Eventually there'd be references to Labubu. I thought I escaped it. I thought I got out, and they keep dragging me back in. Not that I'm into Labubu, but I have so many nieces and nephews and family members and wife who are very interested in this.
So that's pretty cute. Second, Weavers are born with a curse that makes the act of conceiving a child excruciatingly painful, rendering it a near impossible task.
I mean, that never stopped people.
I was unable to find
Also, no, they mentioned conceiving, not delivering, so there's a bit of a delayed one on the human side.
any information on if conceiving a child is excruciatingly painful for Labubus.
Why did you have to say it that way, mossbag? Why did you have to say it that way?
Unfortunately. As someone who also finds the act of getting pregnant extremely difficult himself, I relate a lot to
I, too, can understand. It would be very hard for a guy to get pregnant. It's not something I would like to engage in. In fact, I am actively against that. I'm not going to try. I also just remembered that Toby Fox made an entire MPreg. I think it was musical for Homestuck. I haven't seen it, but knowledge that it exists is kind of its own curse.
The weavers here. I suspect this aspect of their nature is due to Grandmother Silk, and the idea that she made them like this supports the idea that she only ever wanted the weavers so they could serve her. You might wonder why the weavers created such a cruel system with a Citadel, but it seems they didn't have the best role model. But not all weavers were doomed to be barren. Hornet explains to Eva that her mother was able to overcome the curse's limits, which sounds impressive until you remember there are dozens of little weavers running all over Deep Nest and Hollow Knight.
Oh, those are
Hopefully,
weavers?
Team Cherry will explain exactly what's going on with these things.
Honestly, I didn't realize they were the same thing. I wonder if they were just a different branch of weaver.
Because as of right now, it makes me uncomfy. The weavers weren't too happy with their creation though. A rune harp found in Weaveness Atla reads, "Hide her deep, the despised child, our shame shown in shell of iron. She is a wish-cast vein, divinity mimic."
Also, Bill has corrected me. It's not just an MPreg opera. It's a MPEG rock opera. If you need me to explain what MPEG is... Sorry, MPreg. There's a difference there. No, I refuse to go into detail. We're not going to do this. There's a line and I am finding it today. That is one of them.
In form too frail. It seems Eva was an attempt by the weavers to create a divine being capable of usurping Grandmother Silk.
And
but she failed to be the powerful being they had hoped for.
If you don't fight her here, I'm assuming she'll be in DLC then. Or she just dies.
This is similar to the events depicted in the hit film Shrek 2, where Shrek and company created the giant gingerbread man, Mongo, who also tragically suffered from his form being too frail for the task assigned to him. Another attempt by the weavers to stop the awakening
I have
of
not
Grandmother
actually
Silk
seen that
was
movie.
through the creation of the snare setter. One can be found in Weaveness Atla, and needle and dialogue observable there shows the weavers hoped it could be used to keep them free.
Oh.
Eva explains the purpose of the snare setter more plainly. Small things, but tests for larger forms. I still remember their thoughts as they worked, their desperation and their hunger. Another hopeless attempt to wrest their freedom. All ended in failure, of course. In Weaveness Merglin in Bilewater, a lore tablet mentions that the weaver's silk will wane at some point, perhaps indicating that the weavers knew their power was fading. The strangest place a weave nest can be found is deep.
So this is the part that sounds interesting. It almost feels like there's multiple different time periods they're drawing things from. Because on the one hand, they've already bound her and they got their freedom, but then they had to get the other bugs to do it, and then we saw the silk tablet about how the other bugs will hold it forever and then they will perish, but then they'll come back, so I guess maybe the silk will bring them back. I feel like something's weird right now, like we're reading the story out of order almost. Also, Nixon, I've never seen Shrek 2. Yeah, I've seen parts of it. I think I've seen the middle. I only ever really watched the first one from beginning to end. I might have seen clips, but I never actually watched the rest. I don't know how many there are now. I heard there's a new one coming out. I just haven't seen any of the ones before or after that, except for the first.
Below Pharloom, in the Abyss. The Abyss in Pharloom is very similar to the one found in Hallownest. It features the same void tendrils, a lake of void, and massive spires. There's even hints of the ancient civilization here too. At one point, Hornet refers to the void as being below all things, perhaps indicating that no matter where you are in the world of Hollow Knight, if you go down far enough, you'll find the Abyss.
The Abyss looks very different here. It was more bubbly before, and this is way more active. Like, there's a lot more of something in this version.
In Weavenest Absalom, there is evidence of the weavers researching the void. A rune depicting the void tendrils can be found, and it seems the weavers were able to collect void within glass jars. But it doesn't seem like the weavers went much further with any of their void experiments, as nothing here seems to have been used against Grandmother Silk at all.
In other words, they're acknowledging that there is a possibility of the void being used for a DLC if they decide to do it, but more keeping continuity of the world is saying, yeah, we're not just going to ignore the main thing of the other game. We're doing something else, which is kind of cool, actually. A lot of second game syndrome is, hey, remember all those awesome outcomes we saw in the first game? What outcomes? They don't matter. Yeah.
In fact, it doesn't seem like any of these traps or mechanisms worked. The only thing left the weavers could do was flee. In Weave Nest Syndrome in Farfields, hidden in a secret room, Hornet can find a map depicting pathways out of Pharloom. The nearby rune harp reads, "Flee, sisters. Flee until your strength exhausts. So far you may escape at last her silken sight. To start anew, to sustain, free of web and service eternal." So to briefly summarize, it seems at some point during their rule, the Weavers realized they couldn't keep Grandmother Silk in slumber
It almost seems like
indefinitely,
it's pulsing more.
whether that was because they weren't
Can't be,
bringing
though.
in enough pilgrims, or because of their own waiting silk, or because 90% of the bugs in this kingdom can't sing for shit. It was clear something had to be done.
Oh god, that was internal audio? Oh, that is... How do you instruct someone to intentionally sing badly? Oh, you ask someone with my level of skill to do it. Okay, never mind. That's an actual obvious choice.
The Weavers experimented with creating their own god, but that didn't work. They tried to construct a tool to bind Grandmother's silk tight, but that also failed. So ultimately the Weavers decided to flee Pharloom. The only problem was that doing so would end the Citadel's song, hastening Grandmother Silk's awakening. To combat this, the Weavers decided to hand the Citadel over to the bugs themselves, tricking them with a technique we in the crypto space call a rug pull. Despite their flight, the Weavers didn't entirely lose hope.
So in other words, they're very much screwing everyone else over entirely, knowing they're screwing everyone else over entirely. Yep, that would make sense. And somehow it's still not nearly as bad as what they were under, because they were explicitly not given any options.
It seems the Weavers prayed for one of silken strength to one day come and free them from their web. A few Weavers even stayed behind so that they could help this savior should they ever make their way to Pharloom. The Weavers
And that's already a little
also
better.
left servitors to watch over their weave nests
What?
and await their return. By
Okay,
the
that's
time
cool.
Hornet arrives in
How many ways can Hornet just play her harp / dart needle spear thing to make bugs interact? Because that seems like there's a lot of them so far.
Pharloom, it seems there are three main factions in charge of running the place: the Conductors, the Vault Keepers, and the Architects.
Yeah?
The game isn't exactly clear when these different factions took shape within the Citadel. It appears they've been around since before the Weavers left, given that both Vault Keeper Cardinius and the 12th Architect seem well aware of the Weavers. These three factions were also given the threefold melody, which pilgrims needed to reach the cradle. The Conductors seem to have the most responsibility, declaring edicts, sanctioning projects, and even getting directly involved with various experiments within the Citadel. They also
Was
seem
that a
to be able to
bug?
know about the
Kinda looked like
Citadel's true
clothing.
purpose as a cage for Grandmother Silk, giving Conductor Romano's incredibly ominous poem, Pharloom's Folly, as well as Conductor Ballador's possession of that
It still looks like there's something right there. Is that what they're talking about, or?
one extremely incriminating rune harp. This knowledge seemed to weigh heavy on the Conductors. Ballador questions if he would have ever accepted the
Wait, is that thing in the head the rune harp? Because it kind of looks like a harp shape, just there's something else. Oh. Yeah, it's the same thing that person behind the curtain is.
duty if he had known the cost. And of course, Conductor Romano's poem seems to indicate a sense of disdain for the Citadel. While we never see
A
Conductor
cage.
Romano in game, we do see a Conductor's mask all the way on the edge of Pharloom.
Oh, it's a
Whether
mask.
this was Romano's mask or not, it seems one Conductor chose to flee Pharloom for good instead of
So it's both a mask and a symbol and maybe a cage at the same time? Huh. And we already saw the mask maker who was doing this part right here. So they're
bearing
making
the
themselves
mantle
the
of
instrument?
rule. I'll be honest, I'm sure being a Conductor isn't the easiest job in the world,
But
it's gotta be better than being the guy who has to feed maggot gruel to muck roaches all day.
tall roach, tender charge to feed muckroaches on a lean diet of maggot gruel. The feeder's curled pin looks designed to keep ravenous roaches at bay, and the tender from turning into the meal. Yeah.
It's gotta be an order of magnitude more difficult, I swear.
Difficulty of job. Prompt engineer, 9. Neurosurgeon, conductor, salad, roach keeper, YouTuber. I mean, we do have pretty decent hard jobs, yeah. And the only thing harder than being a YouTuber is a prompt engineer. Oh, God. For anyone who hasn't brain rotted themselves not to know what that is, I am not going to subject you to that knowledge. You're welcome.
The Vault Keepers were charged with guarding the secrets of the Citadel. The scroll readers spent their entire lives reading and memorizing prayer scrolls. They also kept psalm cylinders of various prayer songs that could be played back using the proper equipment. From Vault Keeper Cardenius' dialogue, it seems the Vault Keepers viewed the acquisition of knowledge as a way to transcend their own minds and bodies.
Did it work?
Vault Keeper Cardenius is also interesting in that he really hates the Weavers, calling them cursed and implying that they bring death wherever they go. So it's possible the Vault Keepers were aware of some nefarious deeds done by the Weavers during their rule. But Chakra also calls them vicious, so it's possible the views on Weavers changed all over Pharloom after they left.
Or were they treating different groups differently? Because we already saw, if you're part of the choir, yeah, you're still just part of the thing they need to get going. But the people in the under... Is calling it an underhive the correct term, considering it's a bunch of bugs? I have no idea. I'm just going to call it that way anyways. But people in, or bugs in the underhive were treated way worse than the ones who were admittedly doing the thing the Weavers wanted more than anything else. It does seem like they were playing favorites, or, well, appearing to play favorites, where honestly I don't think they really cared.
The architects seem tasked with maintaining the Citadel itself, creating the Cogwork Core, as well as creating the Cogwork Core.
Oh, hey, look! A buzzsaw room. Lovely.
As well as developing new technologies
it's called the Underworks
for the Citadel
originally?
to use. Much of their craft is owed to the tools created by the Weavers themselves. And similar to the Weavers, it seems the architects were also interested in creating life. The first architect designed the first Cogwork Heart, which was used in the Sentinels, an order of knights that served the Citadel. According to the 12th architect, the Sentinels ventured, even beyond these walls, to see all bugs brought forced safe to serve the Citadel.
Brought forced. Ah, so they were literally doing raids for employees. Ah, that would do it. Ooh, Wendy, do you have Silksong? You're trying to finish third act? I do not, because I do not have the hand-eye coordination necessary to play this or Hollow Knight. It's one of the reasons I don't get into these style games. But I still love the entire scene of it. It looks amazing. The art is cool. Just a little voice work and every little secret about it. They sound amazing. I'm just not the person who could ever actually do it.
The use of the word forced here kind of makes me think the Sentinels were kidnapping bugs to work in the Citadel.
Oh, yeah.
But the Sentinel we meet in game is pretty nice, so I really don't want to believe that they did something kind of problematic like...
Oh, I'm definitely believing they did, and maybe this one just didn't.
Kidnapping. But it wasn't just the
Forced
Sentinel robots
relocation.
that the architects created.
Sure, that never has any negative
the numerous
connotations.
Cogworks enemies that populate the core of the Citadel also owe their construction to the architects. But the source of their power seems to come from somewhere else. Whenever one of these machines is destroyed, these strange white flies escape from their shells.
Was that a freaking moth?
These flies are never directly referenced by anyone in-game, but in
Silk fly particle. Okay, so it's a silk fly. It's literally not a moth then. Okay, there's that at least.
the files they are called silk flies. And these things show up all over Pharloom. But where exactly do they come from?
They look really similar.
I believe the answer to that question can be found in the White Ward, a sub-area of the Citadel that provided the setting for horrible experiments.
You know, there's a few things that shouldn't go together. Piles of corpses and infernos through windows and or furnaces viewing sections. And the words horrible experiments. I think we know exactly what we're getting into here.
It's here where bugs of the Citadel had silk injected directly into their shells. It
Oh.
seems this was done to extend the life of the bugs.
But
The caretaker explains. Just think of them greedily shoving the silk into their shells. The madness that overcame them. Eternal life for mortal bugs. The Citadel's reasoning for this can be explained by a lore tablet found within White Ward.
How bad did it
that
go?
Says, Oath of the White Ward. While song must be sung, none may falter. Infirmary, sickness, death, all are banished from our Citadel. In other words, the Citadel couldn't afford to lose bugs to death because they needed to continue singing the song, keeping Grandmother Silk in slumber. If bugs did die, their bodies were cremated so the silk could be recovered. This process of recycling silk over and over again...
The fuck? Oh, so that's what they look like fully...
so the silk could be recovered. This process of...
And they're just throwing
recycling
silk bundles out of themselves. Okay. These would be the conductor bodies then.
silk over and over again caused the
Yeah, they look
wills and
symbols.
pain of these bugs to live on through the silk, trapped in a state of torture even after death. But it seems the bugs of the White Word went even further with their experiments. It seems the silk flies, found inside of the Cogwork's bugs, were also created here. Inside White Word, we can find a strange device, referred to as a silk siphon within the game's code. Huddled around this device are these silk flies. We can also see silk flies trapped inside this container, and an identical container can be found in the center of the silk siphon.
If I knew nothing about this, I would think this is an incredibly disturbing room, and I'm going to stand by it now that I know even a little bit more, and I would like to know less of it.
One of these containers can also be found on the ground next to the 12th Architect. Playing the needle in the silk siphon room reveals the following dialogue. One line in particular is interesting to me. To serve, beyond shell. To the right of this room is a chamber filled with hundreds of corpses. A choral commandment can be found at the end of the room, which reads, Bug of voice grown hoarse or shell fallen frail, you have been selected for duty most sacred. Become our light, our guide in darkness, that others worthy may climb to join the holy song.
Ah. So they literally take people who are dying or dead and drag their souls out to use them as fuel for those flies and then put them into metal bodies, right? I'm assuming that's the level of body horror we're going right here now.
So it seems the Citadel was transforming the silk-infused souls of bugs into silk flies that could be used to provide light for the kingdom of Pharloom, as well as power the various automatons working within the core. Even massive constructs like the fourth chorus release
That is a lot of bugs. So yeah, they're literally just soul stealing.
several dozen silk flies when they're destroyed. Given the silk flies seen on the 12th Architect's corpse after they die, it seems the Architects were also powered by silk flies. The only exception to this I've found is the Cogwork Dancers, which we know were created not from the soul of a Pharloom bug, but from the soul of one of the princes of Verdania.
Oh.
When speaking to the Green Prince after defeating the Cogwork Dancers, Hornet says, his soul is now free from that shell of iron. It seems the Weavers were still in Pharloom when the silk flies were created, since we can see a few of them in Weavenest Atla. We can even see some of them in the Carmelita memory, so it seems they've been around for a long time. We know that some things changed throughout the lifespan of the Citadel, but it can be difficult to track down exactly when these changes took place. For example, in one section of the Citadel, there's an unused statue base. The statue that used to be here was likely Pius Isamor, who was at some point hidden away within the Whispering Vaults.
Because they probably were going to either destroy and someone didn't want it, or they just didn't want to see it anymore.
Pius Isamor mentions that the Citadel is built from simple stone, bare and unadorned, but that is certainly not the case by the time Hornet arrives in Pharloom. So when did these changes happen?
After.
Pius Isamor does mention that the Citadel was bequeathed to the bugs by the Weavers. Bequeathing can mean to give something, but it also has a sense of handing something down. So it's possible the gilding of the Citadel didn't take place until after the Weavers gave control of it over to the Citadel bugs.
Which actually makes it even more disturbing how the gilding is the sharpest point on everything.
But the wording is vague, and I don't get the sense that the Citadel bugs would necessarily be more interested in turning the Citadel into some gilded, shining city than the Weavers were.
Okay.
One big change that almost definitely took place after the Weavers left was the completion of the Citadel Core,
What?
which seems to be referenced in the last edict of the conductors, which reads, And lo, is eternity sustained. By Architect's Claw, we welcome that final form of dial and rotor, and soul gladly given. The perfect, unfaltering voice. The Cogwork Core is a massive structure of cogs and shafts in the middle of the Citadel.
Did they essentially turn the Citadel into a robo hellscape to replicate a jukebox? I can't say the answer to that is no.
We know from the 12th Architect that the core was built to sustain the song. The core is filled with cylinders with pips on them, similar to what...
No, not a jukebox, a music box. That's okay. That is actually pretty cool. Also, animation. Hey, Airier, doesn't the gold work today anyway? I'm donating since I dixed. This takes my no one instead of my father. Oh, how are you today? Not bad. I think should be at like 7 or 8. I actually have no idea what the goal is right now. I really should go back and double check. So maybe after this video we'll double check and I'll see where we're at.
What you would see in a music box. And we know from the Cogwork Clapper journal entry
What
that there are bells and cymbals within the depth of the core.
Oh.
And at the very top of the core are rows of statues capable of producing song. So basically, the act of sustaining the eternal song could be done automatically using the core. Even
Which would be the
maintenance
freedom
could be
the
done by
Weavers wanted.
Cogwork automatons. This might even explain why the elevator at the entrance to the Citadel goes down into the underworks instead of up into the Citadel proper. If pilgrims aren't needed to sing the eternal song anymore, they can just be directed down into the underworks. It seems this was the final state of the Citadel under the rule of the conductors. Bugs were either toiling away in the underworks, locked away in the slab, or trapped as silk flies inside the Cogwork shells.
And honestly, between all of them, being trapped is sounding like the best one in the first few options. I did not expect that to be the case.
Created by the architects. The bugs themselves were replaced by the Cogwork Core, so not only was the religion itself fake, but the ones doing the worshipping were fake as well. The Citadel's promise truly was an empty one. As the caretaker puts it, inside and out, it's nothing but a grand gilded lie. And despite all the harsh schemes devised by both the Weavers and the Citadel cast, Grandmother Silk continued to awaken from her slumber. Conductor Ballador
So they basically made a fake religion with fake worshippers, supported by the toil of people who were essentially kidnapped by robo-cops, and it was all for nothing. Yeah, I think Hollow Nest is looking pretty damn nice by comparison. Did not expect that. It's not what I expected, but apparently it is.
admits to Hornet that this outcome was inevitable, saying, "The mantle of rule, claimed greedily from Pharloom's fading first children, those bitter weavers. It was yoke, not crown.
Yep.
Now in our Citadel silence, we share their truth. Only one monarch's claw ever clutched this kingdom, though we raised our voices to cry otherwise." The Citadel cast was finally forced to face the same reality the Weavers had. Even in her subjugation, Grandmother Silk was still the only true power in Pharloom. At this point, it seems the Citadel finally fell silent, with only the automated Cogwork Core left capable of sustaining the song. But it wasn't enough. We aren't exactly
rooms.
sure when this happened, but at some point the land of Pharloom became haunted by Grandmother Silk. Her threads reached down from the top of the kingdom, starting with the bugs in the Citadel, and eventually reaching all the way down to lower Pharloom, binding the bugs of the land to her will. These threads can be seen occasionally when bugs are defeated, as well as when Hornet plays her needle in near them. But what exactly does the haunting do to these bugs?
Is it just direct control?
At the top of the marrow, Hornet can discover a mysterious building. Inside, a grunting bug and strange squelching sounds can be heard. An operating table can be found in this room as well.
I'm sorry. An operating room with squelching sounds, someone going like, oh. Bad touch, bad touch, bad touch.
It seems a bug obsessed with the haunting started cutting into bugs to examine the effects of the haunting itself. This bug, known as the Learned Pilgrim, was actually going to have their own quest, but was ultimately cut from the game.
Probably for safety.
Their findings can still be found written down on the
Until
lore
they get a
tablet,
DLC.
which starts, "In the air, the water, everywhere. After generations and generations of using silk, Pharloom has become covered in silk dregs. This can be seen most clearly in the Citadel."
Yep.
The tablet continues. "Inside their shells, twisted inside, guts, tightest around heart, pulsing rhythm. The silk has even made its way into the shells of bugs, wrapping itself around their very hearts. The presence of silk here is likely due to the experiments of the White Ward. Hornet and the caretaker come
Because they
to the
learned how to
conclusion
do
that
it.
the threads implanted into the pilgrims from the experiments there would be carried down into their offspring, making the bugs of Pharloom even more susceptible to the haunting. The tablet
So not only do they have the silk in them, but their kids are born with it, so it's going to be perpetuating regardless.
finishes sick, alive, dead, something worse, deeper, must look deeper. The haunting doesn't just enslave the wills of living bugs, but it can also reanimate bugs that have already died, allowing Grandmother Silk to puppet them from above. Under the haunting, bugs long dead rose to their feet to mindlessly continue the tasks they had in life. Pavo, from Belhart, who was caught in threads in a similar way to the haunting, describes the experience as not particularly comfortable, saying, "It is difficult, upsetting even to think. Strange, sad memories, not my own, and my own thoughts smothered amidst the tangle."
Sad memories. Are we about to find out later on that there's something going on with Grandmother Silk that they're just basically running away from, and that's why they made the Weavers? To play them music to distract themselves? It feels like that's what we're leading into.
If one could choose to connect themselves to something grander, that curse may seem a wonder. For myself, it now seems a horror. According to the dialogue from the Silk Art Memory and White Ward, it seems Grandmother Silk is seeking union with the bugs of Pharloom.
But why?
So it makes sense that foreign thoughts would invade Pavo's mind as such. While the Haunting's power was strong, it didn't enslave everyone. Some bugs like Pondcatcher Reed and Balo resisted the force that claimed their peers. It's not clear why some bugs were able to resist the Haunting's power. Benjen and Krull, the two best characters in the game, share their own theories about it, saying, "The Haunting? Oh, we's got that all worked out. Benjen and me are a right pair of philosophers when we bend our minds to it. It's faith that gets you. It's all caused by being too devout."
You believe it's possible, you leave it.
Enough. Or maybe it's safest not to think about it at all. We could all learn a thing or two from these wise men. At some point,
yeah, it does work.
Probably during the Haunting, Grandmother Silk also created her own children entirely out of silk, Phantom and Lace.
Oh.
In the Silk Heart cutscene after defeating Lace in the cradle, we get some dialogue hinting at Grandmother Silk's motivation for creating.
Wait, you don't actually fight Grandmother Silk in this game? Or is it one of the extra endings you reach later on?
Lace. Better a child spun mad than none. Better a child spun frail than none. Better a child spun pure than them. One to wish our waking. From our silk, a child born loyal. So it seems Lace was created to be a loyal replacement for the Weavers who betrayed Grandmother Silk in the past. Caretaker describes Lace as follows. Look of a child and a mind to match, but her's been up wandering this citadel longer than most, even in its long silence. Way 'fore you came and roused its ire. So Lace is kinda like a 1,000-year-old kid, like you see in those Asian cartoons. So
oh my god, they're... So apparently Silksong has both a nudity quest where Hornet loses her shirt, as well as the 1,000-year-old lolly. Of course they do. Oh, God. Also, Josh, what's up, man? And Warhammer logic be like, faith is always the problem. Except for when it actually is the answer, which is also the problem. Usually caused by the same person. I'm looking at you, Lorgar.
That's kind of weird. But then again, the Knight in Hollow Knight is technically using the body of an unborn fetus when you think about it. So maybe this is par for the course for Hollow Knight lore.
Yeah.
The point is, it seems Grandmother Silk really emphasized the child aspect of Lace when creating her, perhaps thinking that would make her more loyal. But that plan created its own problems.
Of child?
As we'll see. Phantom is the other daughter created by Grandmother Silk, but she appears to be deteriorating by the time Hornet finds her hidden
and took
away
off her
in the
mask.
exhaust organ under the Citadel. Her needle and dialogue contains lines like forgotten and discarded, implying that Grandmother Silk wasn't as invested in her as she was Lace. But despite their different stations in Pharloom, Lace and Phantom share a similar tragic fate. Inside this area is an empty tank. Playing the needle and reveals a thread memory of Lace talking to her sister inside the tank. The dialogue reads, "She spun us to fade. She spun us to break. Why us, sister? Why us?" Lace seems to resent her mother for her form, saying, "This weak, wasting existence. This was not life, just a husk shaped to act as a child." Lace's Hunter's journal entry also claims that it would take a lot of silk to maintain Lace's form. So it seems Grandmother Silk's silk-spun children were fragile creations. Phantom has come to accept this by the events of the game, asking Hornet in her Needlein dialogue to free her from her fading fate. Lace, on the other hand, still isn't too happy about the whole being born frail thing. Huh. I wonder if this will be important later. At some
I'm sure it won't be. I mean, can you imagine if there was random events and a Hollow Knight style, or I guess now Silksong style game that would in any way, shape, or form have horrible repercussions? And am I the only one who looks at this and thinks, oh, there's a spinal column and ribs? Except everything is bug-based, so that doesn't make sense. I'm just not going to think about that.
At some point during all this, choir bugs were sent out from Pharloom to track down and retrieve the Weavers.
Oh, they're
and their
butterflies.
kin. The cages used
For
to
months.
transport these weavers can be found in the cradle, giving us insight into where they were captured. A frail bug with 1/8 weaver ancestry was found in the Sand Sea Waste. Another 1/8 weaver was mortally wounded and taken in the Black Barrens. And a 1/4 ancestry weaver was staked to serve and taken under the City of Steel. We can also find a coral commandment possessed by one of the bugs that kidnapped Hornet, which reads, "Full chamber to the kingdom of the white Wyrm. Claim the weaver in half part. Last of their line. Sense strong with silk. Resistance anticipated. Quell with rune cage." What's
Yeah,
interesting
that's how
about
this game
this
is set
line
up.
is the phrase, "sensed strong with silk," which possibly implies that the weavers could be sensed from Pharloom, possibly explaining how the locations of the weavers were known. It seems most likely that Grandmother Silk ordered these weavers captured. Her exact motives are never directly stated, but it seems likely to me that Grandmother...
And we have over here what we saw before. That's the cage that people were wearing, except we never actually saw the bug wearing it.
Silk wants these weavers for their silken strength. Maybe she intends to bind these weavers to herself, making her even stronger. While we know several weavers were brought back to Pharloom, only one can be found alive in-game, Widow. Widow is a pretty mysterious character in the lore.
Are you saying she's a black widow by any chance? Did she have more lovers that she killed?
According to Hornet, her mask was forcibly removed, and heavy pins were stuck in her spine to keep her from making her own silk. Widow is a fanatic for Grandmother Silk, and a thread memory of her worshipping her in the cradle can be found. Widow is a bit crazed when Hornet finds her, and that seems to be the result of her mask being removed. We know from Hornet's interaction with Mask Maker in this game that masks can in fact alter a creature's personality.
Oh.
But who exactly removed Widow's mask, and why?
Is that in a Hollow Knight lore as well, to remove the mask make someone go insane? Or is it that they go sane when they get a mask?
One theory is that Widow is the 1/4 weaver who was captured and staked to service. That would make some sense, since Widow has been literally staked in the back, and is now serving Grandmother Silk. However, the stake to service line might be referring to what state this weaver was in when they were first found by the choir bugs, not the ultimate fate they faced once back in Pharloom.
In other words, they might have been brainwashed to love and be loyal to Grandmother Silk when they were brought back, but they weren't there initially.
Aside from that, some of Widow's dialogue makes me think that something else is going on here. When she meets Hornet, Widow refers to her as spawn of those who dared to flee. This line implies to me that Widow didn't flee Pharloom like her sisters. Otherwise, it would come off a bit hypocritical. In her thread memory in the cradle, she says, "Of the first, the last," and "Our mother, true." These lines imply Widow has a much more direct connection with Grandmother Silk, as opposed to being only a one
Or maybe she always
weaver
was fanatical.
born somewhere
Can't
outside
really
of
tell.
Pharloom. I suspect Widow was the only weaver still alive in Pharloom after all the others fled. As for the removed mask and bounded silk, there are several possibilities. Perhaps Widow was punished by her fellow weavers for continuing to support Grandmother Silk, even after she was put to sleep. Although, why wouldn't they just imprison her like they did for Sinner? Maybe Grandmother Silk cruelly had Widow punished for the crimes of her fleeing sisters, and then kept her around as a servant. Or maybe Widow did it to herself, forcibly pulling her own mask off, similar to pulling out one's own teeth, as some kind of demented demonstration of fealty to her mother. Nothing is strictly confirmed though, and I'll be curious to see what theories evolve around this character. As for the weavers that did flee Pharloom, it seems their goal was still to create a child that could usurp Grandmother Silk. One of these groups ended up in Deep Nest, where one of its members, Hera the Beast, became queen. Deep Nest bordered a larger civilization called Hollow Nest, ruled by the Pale King and the White Lady. At some point, the Pale King asked Hera to become a dreamer, a role which would require her to fall into an eternal sleep. Hera agreed, but...
And that explains why she would agree, because what she's running from is so much worse. This is still seeming nice.
only if the Pale King gave her a child. The exact details of what happened next are far too dangerous to discuss here on YouTube. So please type this URL into your browser if you really want.
Please, oh please, mossbag, tell me how the Pale Kind and Hera the Best created Hornet. I really want to know. I am ever so curious about this information. Yeah, I see where this is going.
To know. Either way, the result of all this was the birth of Hornet. We see during the Red Memory in Act 3 of
baby.
Silksong that the Weavers were watching over Hornet closely, hoping to draw out her Weaver
Actually,
nature,
baby Hornet.
saying, "Prove yourself more Weaver than Wyrm." But Hera challenged this, telling Hornet, "Ignore them, daughter. They're whispers. Greater, grander, Weaver, Guardian, Queen. Those are their desires."
I absolutely just adore the little chibi Hornet. That's so cute. Why is it so cute? Why is the bug cute?
Not your own. Certainly not mine. Only if you resist them, you might see it. Another hope, beyond. So it seems the Weaver saw Hornet's strength as a pale being, and hoped that she would finally help them defeat Grandmother Silk. Hera, on the other hand, seemingly had no interest in this plan, encouraging Hornet to forge her own path. There's just one wrinkle to all this I just don't understand. During the events of Hollow Knight, we see that the Weaver's den in Deep Nest is completely abandoned, save for one Weaver which can be spotted watching the night. According to the Weaver Song charm found in this area, these Weavers actually left Hollow Nest for their old home, Pharloom. But if that's the case, what happened to them? The Weave Nest tablets make it pretty clear that they wanted to stay as far away from Grandma Silky as possible. The only possible indication of where the Hollow Nest Weavers went can be found in Weave Nest Absalom in the Abyss. In this Weave Nest, Hornet can find the Far Sight item. This item allows observation over vast distances, and can tell Hornet the state of the world.
That looks very reminiscent of the king's headpiece and or mask from the first game. It's probably more just a design choice than anything else, though.
In the real world, this would be a horrifying mass surveillance device, the likes of which only exist in fiction stories, like the classic novel 1984.
You know, I never realized I could get triggered by reading a title, but no, apparently reading it out like that actually just causes me pain. I was not aware of that, and now I am aware. Hey, sup, Hobbit? Welcome back, man.
But in-game, it basically means the player can now see the game's completion percentage.
Oh, no, don't worry about it, man. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you guys like it. It's just not my taste. That's all. No worries.
There are a lot of parallels that can be drawn between this item and the Pale King from Hollow Nest. The design of the object itself vaguely resembles him. The Pale King
okay, never mind. I was not the only one saying that. Whoa! Oh, no. I have not played Hollow Knight. I've only seen mossbag stuff and a few other videos. I did not know about this. That is all the... This is so the, like, Stay Puft Marshmallow guy that I'm actually surprised that there's not a Ghostbusters reference here. Oh, wow. Sorry, I got very distracted there. Wow. Quantum, was the stream restarted? Nope. It just had a case of such horrible lag that YouTube is now just catching up.
Vaguely resembles him.
Okay,
the Pale King has an ability described as foresight, allowing him to know the future to some extent. The lore tablet he left for the Hollow Knight in the Black Egg Temple also gives the world sensibility, which allows the player to see the game's completion percentage. The rune effect in the Farsight cutscene also resembles runes we see in the cast-off shell, so it's possible the Weavers designed this device after encountering the Pale King in Hollow Nest and returning to Pharloom. But if that's the case, where are they? Another possibility is that the Weavers encountered a different Wyrm than the Pale King, and that's
the small animations look so cool.
We just don't have quite enough information to say for sure. One way or another, chorus bugs were sent to Hollow Nest. They eventually captured Hornet within a rune cage, and carried her all the way back to Pharloom. And now we finally made it to the events of Silksong proper.
Wait, that was just the lead up to the game's... He did the same damn thing in the last video about Hollow Knight. I should not be surprised about this. I really shouldn't be. It was literally just all the world building so you know what happens when the character actually drops into it. Okay, mossbag. First one, shame on you. Second one, shame on me for not seeing it a second time when you were already doing it again. That one's on me.
It's at this point I want to thank a few people for their help on this video, talking lore with me and sharing ideas, as well as the Hollow Knight wiki community in general, for just being really cool. Also the modding community as well.
There's mods?
It took a bit of time for the wiki and mod communities to build up around Hollow Knight when it released back in 2017.
Were the laser bugs a mod or just part of the game? I actually no, I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
So it's been awesome to watch the community tear Silksong apart like a pack of ravenous hyenas on the Serengeti. It honestly brings a tear to my eye, and I don't even cry that much anymore. As the party arrives in Pharloom.
Nope. I know where I'm going to cut this one here. It's the same thing I did the last mossbag. I'm going to do the entirety of the gameplay that he covers in its next part, but right now we have finished the intro to Silksong, and there's a lot, man. That's fun, and I really want to see what's happening, but I also know I won't be here for the entire rest of it if I do that. Either way, just... he got me a second time. He actually got me. They got me, man. So if you haven't already, you guys know the deal. There's a second link. There's a first link even to the game below. I like... Well, I can't speak today. To mossbag's coverage of the game. I like it. It's good. And... I wish I was good at this style of game because I want to try this. I'm not, though. I'm really not. I wish I was, but I'm not. So I'm going to enjoy it through this, and it'll be awesome. Again, link, hit it up. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.